First of all, congratulations on another outstanding Senior Bowl. It was fantastic to be able to watch so much of it on the NFL Network this year. It was pretty much wall-to-wall coverage. The event just goes from strength to strength every single year. And for those of us on the outside, to have that sort of access to the game, the info, the coverage, a real tour de force. So thank you for that. I want to get straight into the players who shone in Mobile. Darius Robinson dominated 1v1s, physically looking tremendous. I interviewed Mekhi Wingo a couple of weeks ago, and he said Darius Robinson basically taught him how to be a pro when they were at Missouri together. So what can you tell us about his performance in Mobile, his range in the draft, and what he could be in the NFL?
Yeah, great to be on again, Rob. Yeah, Darius did an unbelievable job down here. Helped himself a ton. I was with his defensive coordinator Blake Baker yesterday at LSU. He just went from Missouri to LSU, he mentioned how tight he and Wingo were. But yeah, Darius did everything you could possibly do. He came down very businesslike. I feel like over the last 6 years of doing this job, the guys that come down, really excited about it and really, really bought in are the guys that have the best weeks. He showed up to interviews at night with resumes. I don't think that's been out there yet. I mean, this guy was handing out resumes at interviews, but really serious about it. And that goes all the way back to when I met Darius last summer at the SEC Media Days. And I've kind of posted stuff about this online before, but we didn't invite him the year before. We had a 5th round grade on him, and I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but it was basically like, what more do I need to do? What didn't I do to get an invite last year? And again, how he said it was like it wasn't accusatory. It wasn't feeling sorry for himself. It was just the tone of it was like, man, I just want to get better this year. What do I need to do? And so, no, it didn't surprise me that he kind of showed up the way he did. And then like you said, the one-on-ones, he was basically unblockable. He's got a really cool body type, really versatile game. And he's kind of in that he's just had a great spring. I saw something the other day where he's got 30 visits to go on. And, to me, there's no way he's getting out of the first round. If he meets with 20 teams, somebody's taking him in the first round because as impressive as he was down here, on the field, what everyone could see, he's been just as impressive behind the scenes. So somebody's going to want to take this guy. Somebody's going to want him in their D-line room and in their locker room. He's a guy that 6-7 years from now, he will be a leader. When I was with the Seahawks, we used to talk about having like pillar type guys in the program. And I think Darius is going to be that for whatever team drafts him. So I'm just happy for him. We're getting to the end of this process now. And I think he's clearly solidified himself being a first-round pick.
And sticking with the defensive line, Brennan Fisk had one of the best combines. I've watched the whole event for the combine every year for the last 14 years, and his has to be one of the best that we've seen. Had an outstanding week in Mobile as well. When he tests as well as he does, he's obviously got A++ character. His tape is great. What else does he have to do to get a bit more attention?
Nothing. There's nothing more I can do either. I feel like I've been posting stuff on Fisk since the Senior Bowl. But again, like I've been trying to push the narrative that this guy's not some like try hard, high motor guy. Like sometimes you want to pigeonhole a white defensive tackle as like some try hard guy. Like this dude's really athletic. So it didn't surprise me that he ran 4.75 and really, even more than the numbers, the testing numbers were great, man. It was, to me, and you watched those position drills, it was kind of like everybody else in Fisk in terms of like what it looked like. I thought he looked like a big Mike linebacker going through the bags and stuff. This dude, he's really nimble. He's super twitched up. The fun part of Senior Bowl week, everyone watches the one-on-ones, right? I get how fun those are. But, since we've had time to digest the whole week, going back over the team period stuff, he is the first one off the ball every single snap. He just, everyone wants to talk about his short arms. His ability to get on you fast really negates that lack of reach. So no, he's a cool kid too. And going back into the fall, he called the office and thanked me for the invite, which I don't expect that. Guys don't have to do it. But he found the Senior Bowl office. It wasn't my personal number. He didn't get that from a coach. He just kind of cold called the office and and said, you won't be disappointed. And I told him at that time, said, Braden, I've seen you play live a couple of times and have seen all your tape, but like, I've never seen you practice. I said, if you practice here the way you play, like you're going to make yourself a lot of money just, with that kind of energy and letting people feed off you. And I think that's where teams, like talking to guys, I've been hitting the pro day circuit a little bit the last couple of weeks. And when Braden's name comes up, I feel like the teams that when you draft a guy like him, you feel like you're making the room better too. Like other guys, he's going to make other guys practice harder. He's going to make other guys work harder. So not only are you getting a good football player, you're getting a guy that's going to rub off on others. He kind of, people call that a multiplier. Like he's a multiplier. So again, I'm just happy for guys like that embrace the process. He goes to his pro day. He didn't have to do anything at pro day. Jared Verse didn't do anything at pro day. And he's frankly had a better process than Verse has. He could have sat out, but no, he went through all the position drills again and, has nothing to hide. So I'm just excited to see where he ends up, man. He probably started off this process when we were putting our roster together in November. He was probably a 4th or 5th rounder for most teams. And I think he's solidly going to go in the 2nd round if the medicals check out okay. I'm excited to see how high that gets.
Tandre Sweat had some of the more remarkable reps in the 1v1s, and everybody's seen the highlights by now. What are your thoughts on his potential for the NFL, given his size, power, and athleticism? And I also wondered if you could share some thoughts on his Texas teammate, Byron Murphy. I know that he didn't play ultimately in the Senior Bowl, but I'm sure he's also someone that you've got a lot of intel on.
Yeah, you're bringing up a sore subject, Rob, because we had Murphy committed to the game, but I'll get into that. Yeah, Big T Sweat. I feel bad for Bo Limmer from Arkansas because that one rep where he kind of put Bo on skates and folded him up. Bo's had a great process. I think Bo's going to go in the 3rd round. I thought when this thing started, 4th or 5th. Again, he's another guy that's helped us up a lot. Unfortunately, he had the one bad rep against Tandre Sweat. But to me, with Tandre is he's truly a unique player in this draft. I mean, there's nobody else like him. I mean, there's only a handful of players across the board at all the positions where, like, if you don't get that guy, there's really not another one like him. He might be the most unique guy in the entire draft, regardless of position, with his athletic ability at that size. So, he's a guy. I think the biggest impact that Tandre made on me during the week and what I didn't know was that he's got some real fire in him. Like, he's one of those guys that when you piss him off, like, look out. And I think that's what the coach, because he started, when some of the offensive linemen started jawing with him during one-on-ones. I wish that stuff came through on the television as much as it does when you're down there in the field. Like when people got to Devon in his head a little bit, that's when you saw him pick it up. And whatever defensive line coach gets him, you figure out to push those buttons. I mean, you've got a potentially dominant player. So, again, I don't think T Sweat gets out of the 2nd round. I just think he's too big and too talented, and everybody's looking for that guy. And I mean, Seattle's missed a guy like that for a few years now. He would be a great piece to set inside there next to the guys they already have in that room. So no, he's had a good process. He's embraced it all. He was a guy that when we got him signed up for Senior Bowl, there was a team saying, Jimmy's not going to finish the week. He's not going to make it to game day and play in the game. Well, you know what? He did play in the game. You know what? He did go to the combine and do everything. You know what? He did go to pro day and do everything. So this guy's proved a lot of people wrong through the process. And with Byron Murphy, I hate it, man. Every year, Daniel Jeremiah is a good friend of mine. I love DJ. It's not his fault that the NFL Network makes him put out mock drafts like a week before the Senior Bowl. But as soon as he put out, I think it was a top 50 list this year, maybe it was a mock draft, and wherever Byron Murphy was, like 15 or something, I texted him immediately. And he had Taliese Fuaga from Oregon State in that same range, like 10th or 11th. I texted DJ. I said, man, why are you doing this to me? Like, I swear we're going to lose both these guys before the day's over. And he texted back. He's like, no, don't say that. Don't say that. And literally within an hour, Murphy's agent called and pulled him from the Senior Bowl. So I've already talked to the NFL Network and the people at NFL Media to hold off on Daniel Jeremiah mock drafts until after Senior Bowl week. I said, man, we're all in this thing together. If you want good ratings, if you want star power on the NFL Network, you better slow your roll with DJ's mock drafts, because what DJ's a big influencer in the space, and he should be. He's one of the few guys that has actually worked for a team and been there and done that. So, but yeah, that one hurt. But Murphy, I've compared him to Grady Jarrett, who's one of my favorite guys I've scouted in the last 15 years. I love Grady Jarrett's tape coming out of Clemson. He's been an awesome franchise, one of the greatest players in Atlanta Falcons franchise history, and undersized but very powerful, very instinctive, athletic. To me, it was Fisk and Murphy were the two most athletic guys in that D-line group at the combine. So he's going to be a great player. I think either of those Texas guys could help the Seattle Seahawks. So, but yeah, I still wish we would have had him down here in Mobile. He's a really good player. He's one of my favorite guys I did this year.
Seahawks fans talk a lot about the offensive line at the moment, Jim. This is, to be fair, a very deep offensive line draft. I've said that a few times, but I think there's probably a few Seahawks fans who'd be really reassured to hear somebody more qualified say that. So can you tell us a little bit about how deep this O-line class is and what you like about it? And are you going to be able to find starter caliber players in the middle rounds this year?
On the offensive line? Yeah, for sure. No, it's a really deep group. I think where it's better than maybe some people anticipated pre-Senior Bowl was it's better at center. Again, just coming off this pro day circuit I was just on, Dominic Pooney's name came up a bunch. The center, a guard tackle from Kansas, who got to play center here at the Senior Bowl. A lot of teams are excited about Dom Pooney as the starting center. Bo Limmer from Arkansas, I think Team C is a starter now. Graham Barton from Duke, who was committed to playing the game and then couldn't play because of a legit injury situation that he had second to last game. Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon came down here and probably had as too good a days of practice as any interior offensive lineman we've had over the last 6 years since I've been here. So it's deeper inside than you thought. I think everyone knew the tackle class was going to be good going into the year. I think these guards and centers have really proven themselves. So to long-windedly answer your question, I think you could get in the fourth round. If like Isaiah Adams from Illinois, Dom Pooney from Kansas, those are names you're not seeing in the media a lot that I know the NFL really likes. I'm going to start posting some stuff about both those guys soon. Again, based off the buzz in the league, I don't think either of those two guys makes it to day three. The media is probably mocking those guys more in the fourth or the fifth. They're probably more thirds, but yeah, I think you're going to be able to find guys like that. Roger Rosengarten from Washington. I don't think he gets to day three. I don't know. Everyone's got a different definition of middle rounds. I always think middle rounds like fifth and sixth, 4, 5, 6. But yeah, I think you're going to be able to get starters, eventual starters, maybe not day one starters, but eventual starters in that fourth round.
Linebacker gets a fair amount of attention as well amongst Seahawks fans at the moment. I loved watching Trevor Wallace's tape. What will he bring to the next level, and what did he show in Mobile?
Yeah, it's a great name to bring up. I just saw his linebackers coach, the guy he started his college career under, John Summerall, left Kentucky, is the linebackers coach, D coordinator, take the Troy head coaching job a couple years ago. Now he's at Tulane. I ran into John a couple of days ago at the Tulane's pro day, and we talked about Trevin. And he's a guy whose best football is way out in front of him. He's tested great. John told me, the guys at Kentucky told me he was going to run in the 4.4s when he came out. Again, this is a junior. This is a junior player. It's, we had the new rule this year where you can bring juniors. So Trevin was a good one for us. I think he was flying under a lot of radars up until we started this pre-draft process. Not a lot of people knew about him. But very athletic, ran in the 4.4s. He is the space linebacker that everybody's looking for. He can legit cover. There were some really good coverage reps down here in Mobile, so you'll never have to take him off the field. I think where he's still learning is just instinctively playing downhill, block defeat stuff. He's going to keep getting better at. Kentucky had a guy go in the first round a couple years ago, Jamin Davis. And I'm not saying that this guy's going to go in the first round, but Jamin went in the first round, and this guy's more athletic. He's just a more athletic player. He's better in space. He's better sideline to sideline. So that's a good one. I think that, again, could he go in the second round? I do, just because it's not a great linebacker class depth wise, and he's a 3-down player. So he definitely doesn't get out of the third. I think he's got a chance to go in the second.
And I also wondered, could someone like Nathaniel Watson end up having a a fairly decent role to play in the NFL? His sack numbers are very good. I think he called the plays on defense for Mississippi State. I think he said in the last couple of days that he's going to have an official 30 visit with Seattle. So, what can you tell us a bit about his play?
Yeah, Bookie Watson. He's got a cool resume. Not many guys lead the SEC, the best conference in football, college football, lead the league in tackles and sacks. That doesn't happen very often. And again, it's not a lot of edge pressure stuff. It's he's blitzing from the second level, and he's got an ability to do that. I'll go back to like one of my first jobs in scouting was with the Patriots. We ran a 3-4 defense, and this is a guy that I would have loved back then because I think he can legit play as an inside backer in a 3-4 and an outside linebacker in a 3-4. So he's got really cool versatility that way. I think that's the scheme he fits best for. But really uniquely versatile. And again, I think he's learning to play bigger. You watch the last 2 years of tape, like he's getting more physical. He's coming downhill and playing bigger on blocks. So and then in the Senior Bowl game, showed up in coverage, made a couple really nice plays in coverage. Laid a stick on Theo Johnson, the tight end from Penn State, early in the game. Played passing lanes with his length. He's a really long guy. So again, I think he's a 3-down player. Where he goes, he probably fringe top 100, late 3 to mid 4, somewhere in that range. But I do think that's kind of the sweet spot. You look around the league and where linebackers are. We did a study in the office here. There's a lot of day 3 linebackers that end up starting, a lot of undrafted linebackers that end up starting. So it's really an instinctive position. I think that guys that don't test well kind of get crushed in the combine pro day part of it. And that's why they get beat down a little bit. And then once they get to the league, those instincts take over again. And, teams want to play with instinctive guys that can find the football. And Watson's certainly one of those guys. So I did not hear that he had a 30 visit up in Seattle, but it makes sense.
There's a couple of safeties I wanted to ask you about, Jim. I really enjoyed watching Javon Bullard at Georgia. Do you think that he's pretty much secured himself in the top 60? And I had a chance to speak to Malik Mustafa. I know he has just done a pro day, obviously couldn't do too much of the combine because of injury, but I thought he was so engaging, so interesting to listen to, very passionate about his career and football in general. What do you see from him and from Bullard as well?
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't have Mustafa down here very long. That was the injury. He got injured here on the first day of practice on Tuesday. So didn't get to know him very well, but just talking to some agents that went through their recruiting process with Mustafa, like A+ guy. So whatever you got away from your interview, that's what I've heard as well. This is an old reference. I posted it yesterday when I was posting his pro day numbers. There was a guy came out of Oregon years ago, TJ Ward, who had a really good NFL career, mostly with the Browns and the Broncos. I think he went through a few Pro Bowls, but really the player, the body type, he's kind of a thicker, sawed off, muscled up guy. Their games kind of mirror each other. Just reminded me a lot of the guy, because when they see it, they're instinctive. When they see it on the net, they just dart to the football. They pull the trigger, they get there, they're explosive on contact. So both those guys were really fun to watch. And Mustafa, again, whatever he did yesterday, 41.5 on the vert, jumped out of the gym and ran well for a guy that was, coming off an injury. So to me, I think you draft him, he's probably somewhere in that early day 3 range based off what I've heard. And you've got a chance to hit on a starting level player, depending how you use him. And then Bullard, yeah, I think round 2 is legit range for Bullard. I could see that. He's certainly a top 75 guy, top 60 maybe. He had a great week here. I give him a lot of credit. He's another junior. And some of these juniors, their agents are telling them not to come play in the Senior Bowl. And I think we've had enough juniors like Jackson Powers Johnson and Trevin and Bullard that came down and helped themselves. So hopefully next year, the agent community will see some of these guys that help themselves. But the thing with Bullard, he's just a good football player. He's really instinctive. He puts himself in the right position to make plays. And what, he helped himself here. Again, not so much, the one-on-one stuff was good, but when you go to team period stuff and in the game, he and Tyke Smith, both the Georgia safeties, showed out in those periods. These guys know football. They know where to be on a football field. They see it. They trust their eyes, and they both can tackle. So I think both those guys help. And then they both go to the combine and run high 4.4s. And when I watched the tape and when we talked to teams around the league, we all kind of saw it the same. Like, you maybe question speed a little bit with both of them. And then they go to Indy and they run 4.47, 4.46. So now you're talking about real range in the back half. Like Tyke didn't play back there a bunch until he got to Mobile. Now teams feel really good about Tyke back there. Kind of like when Jalen Petrie played in the game a couple years ago. He was used a lot at Baylor, like Tyke was used at Georgia. So again, I think both those guys have a chance to be one of the first 5 safeties off the board. If we're just stacking that safety group, I think both those Georgia guys could be top 5 safeties in the class.
And to pay homage to the helmet that is just over your left shoulder there, the Washington State helmet, I had a chance to have a chat with Brennan Jackson. And I know that I think, like Mustafa, I think he got an injury, didn't he, Mobile, and couldn't quite do as much as he wanted to. But I do probably about 7 or 8 player interviews a year, Jim, and his was definitely a top 5 of all the years that I've been doing it. It was just awesome. Unbelievable. I mean, he was just, talk about a guy who loves football. I think he ran a 4.34 short shuttle this week, which is a good time for him at his size. What could he be at the next level? Do you sort of see a player in him that could have an impact in the NFL?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that was a bummer. It was a weird injury. He got rolled up on one of the pylons in the end zone. They were doing D-line drills, and he rolled his ankle up on a freaking pylon. So I was bummed about that. But no, he's a fun guy to watch on tape because he plays his tail off. Like you said, like the passion comes through and you talk to him. You don't have to, if you were a scout going into Pullman this year, you wouldn't have to really ask if Brennan Jackson loves football, because just put on the tape, you can see it. So again, he's got a really cool 3-4 outside linebacker body type, 6'3.5", 6'4"-ish, 260 pounds. Again, I think he's a guy whose best football is still ahead of him too, because I thought he made a nice jump from tape over the summer when we watched the junior stuff to this year. So guy that plays really hard, will probably be in a rotation early. I don't know if he's going to come in and win a starting job out of camp. I mean, he could, depending on the situation, but because of the effort and relentlessness, you're going to get him in the rotation, and then he's going to play on a bunch of special teams. Because like you referenced the short shuttle, that's really good for a man that size. So he has change of direction skills. He's not some like straight line athlete. So he's going to be able to break down on kickoff team and punt team and do that kind of stuff. So you feel good about you draft him wherever that is, 4th round, maybe, probably, I would guess right now. He's getting on the bus on Sundays. He's coming to help you out on Sundays. That he's going to have a role. And then the other guy, we had Shaw Wade Smith from Washington State, who had a great week down here. I'm excited to see what he's going to do. And we didn't get Jaden Hicks. And that was an injury thing too. I've heard, at least through his agents, that part of Jaden leaving school is he wanted to play in the Senior Bowl. And then it was a legit injury situation. So I'm bummed, because he was personally one of my favorite safeties in the class. I mean, it took me about half a game to watch Jaden Hicks and be like, okay, we would love to have this guy in the Senior Bowl if we could get him. I want to say it was the Wisconsin game. I think it was Wisconsin. It was probably the best safety tape I saw of any safety in this year's draft, was that Wisconsin game. So that's 3 good ones, man. That's 3 really good players from Wazoo they're cranking out this year.
If you like him that much, and you were really talking very positive about Cole Bishop this week, so how does Hicks's range compare to Cole Bishop?
Yeah, it's a weird comparison because they're different body types. Jaden's just a bigger, longer, taller guy, so it looks different. But the thing I liked, he moved really well for a taller safety. Some of those guys, you get high hips like that, and you really struggle to, kind of flip and move and transition. Cole is another guy. Like, I feel like, and that's how I put that post out a couple of weeks ago on Cole. I was seeing nothing on social media or the internet about this guy. And I was at the combine out one night with some guys, and there was 3 different guys from 3 different teams, and we started talking about Cole. He ran well that day. I think ran 4.44, 4.45. His agent called me to tell me the combine has adjusted his time to 4.40. I didn't take down the post and repost it, but anyway, he ran fast. And I said to them, well, where do you think Cole's going to go? Like somewhere in the third, and they're like, he ain't getting out of the second. So that's and these three guys are all upper level guys with teams. They have a pretty good feel for where these guys are going to go at this point. So yeah, to me, Cole is a guy that, I mean, if there's one knock, maybe want him to get a little stronger as a tackler. But certainly the mover, he's got a trigger on him. He can play in the deep half. You can play short zone. That's how they mostly used him at Utah. He's kind of an underneath player. They blitzed him a ton. He's a good blitzer. So again, whoever drafts Cole Bishop, and same thing with Jaden Hicks, I think they're in Bullard and Tyke. I think you're drafting those guys to start next year.
I wanted to ask you about a couple of players at tight end before finishing with quarterbacks. Ben Sinnott, so fun to watch during the season at Kansas State, then test brilliantly at the Combine, another A++ character guy. And Theo Johnson, another sensational testing display, a lot of potential there. What can you tell us about that pair?
Yeah, different guys, but like you said, both crushed the Combine. So Theo was our top graded senior tight end coming out of the summer. Just love the athlete for a guy that size. He's just a big, easy moving target. It's hard. They had another one there this year that's going to be a senior next year that ended up going back to school. They've got two good running backs, junior running backs for next year that are at the top of our board right now. So what I'm saying is they had a lot of balls to spread around in Penn State. And so Theo maybe wasn't as targeted. Some of the numbers might not look like some of the other tight ends in the class, but big, easy moving guy, can really run, can get down the seam. I wish they would have done that a little more at Penn State. He can really go down. He can really climb the seam. So a mismatched player, man. And he's got a frame to keep developing as a blocker. The guy's almost 6'6". He's 255, 60 pounds, whatever he measured here. And then Ben's a little different. He's more of a move tight end. I think Theo's big enough to play on the line of scrimmage. I think Ben's more of a move guy fullback, being 6'3.5". But like you said, tested great, super productive. What I would have loved to have seen Ben be in an offense where he wasn't really the main focus. I mean, he was the guy. Will Howard, the quarterback at Kansas State, who he just transferred to Ohio State, but those guys were best friends. I went and did the invite to Ben on campus there in Manhattan, Kansas, and those two dudes are tight. So, but he was the guy. He didn't have a couple NFL receivers on the perimeter pulling coverage away from him. So it would have been cool to see what that looked like. But I think if you do the analytics part of what percentage Ben Sinnott was of the Kansas State passing game, it was a huge number. So he's used to extra attention. He's used to having people play over the top of him and underneath him. And he can make plays in traffic. And he's just a really cool athlete for a guy that was a walk-on coming out of high school. 40-inch vertical jump. I mean, that's in running what he ran, 4.6s. So again, I think probably somewhere late on day 2, I think he's probably worked himself into that range, that third round range, where when the process started, maybe 4th or 5th. But yeah, he and Theo both have taken full advantage of Mobile, Combine, and now as we head towards April.
And to finish with the quarterbacks, Michael Penix Jr. is having his pro day right now. I think he's just started throwing in the last 20 minutes. Had a great run, jumped to like 36.5-inch vertical. I was actually at the Apple Cup, and I think he's done a 38-inch vertical, on campus there before. So obviously a fantastic athlete. I found it difficult, Jim, to sort of understand what his range could be, though, because you sort of see the mock drafts. Daniel Jeremiah had him at 13 to the Raiders. Colin Coward put a mock out today, had Seattle trading up to 12 to get him. Charles Davis has got him at 16 to Seattle. But then you see a lot of other people who say, well, the league sees him as a day 2 prospect. So what's your view on Penix? And have you got a thought on what his likely range could be?
Yeah. Well, first I'm going to start. If you made it all the way to the Apple Cup, you can certainly get to Mobile next January or February for our game. So if you made it all the way out there. But no, Mike's interesting, man. I think that, his injury history is pretty well known. There's some guys in the draft process every year that it doesn't get out in the media. It doesn't get to the fan bases, but everyone kind of knows what Mike's still. I think people have kind of leaned into that, like it's real easy to be like, oh, his medical's going to be isn't going to be good. So let's just say he's not a first rounder. And then today, so, I had some boots on the ground there. Some of the Seattle guys were there, texting me the numbers, and, he ran 4.51 to 4.57, depending on the watches that were down there on the field. And I don't think people understand just how athletic Mike is, because he hasn't done that. He hasn't been that guy at UW. He was that guy at Indiana. He ran a lot, and that's probably where some of the injuries came from. But he is mobile. He does have that. I think we all know what he is from the pocket. I mean, this guy can absolutely, slice and dice you. And he's such a pretty thrower. I wish I was at that pro day. That would have been a fun one. I was just at Jaden Daniels yesterday, so that would have been. There was a group of quarterbacks coaches going from Baton Rouge up there. That'd be a fun couple days to watch those guys. But I think Michael's range. Like, I was at the hotel the other night in Baton Rouge, and there was a lot of teams. We're all sitting around in the lobby waiting for our rooms to get ready. They didn't have any of our rooms ready at the hotel, so we were all sitting around talking about quarterbacks. And there was two guys on a quarterback needy team. And I asked them, I'm like, where does Penix go? Does he go in one or does he go in two? And one guy said he's definitely going in one. The other guy goes, I think he's going in two. So I think it's a coin flip. I just know how this stuff usually goes. I mean, these quarterbacks usually there's a big need for these guys. Teams want to get that 5th-year option on them. Michael certainly has first round ability, in my opinion. Just watching what he's done the last couple of years. And again, yes, does he have injury history? Sure he does. But has he stayed injury free the last 2 years? Yes, he has. So I think he throws the ball downfield way too efficiently for some teams to let this guy get out of the first round. So we'll see. But I think depending on who you talk to in the league, you're going to get a lot of ones and you're getting a lot of twos. But I think there's going to be enough ones that's where he ends up going.
And the final player I wanted to ask about, because I know there's a lot of people who will not forgive me if I don't ask you about him. Spencer Rattler, obviously, I thought he had a really good season and in a difficult situation, because South Carolina didn't have the best year and he didn't have a lot of support, a lot of help there, basically Xavier Legette, and that was kind of it. Where do you see his future in terms of the draft and what he could be maybe at the next level?
Yeah, Spencer, to me, Spencer and Michael Pratt from Tulane, whose pro day I was at a couple of days ago, and he and Michael and I had this talk. I feel like they're the forgotten guys because everyone's focusing so much on the top 6, right? It's a great class. Everyone knows that. You've got the big top 3, then you got JJ and Bo Nix and Michael Penix, and then you've got Rattler and Pratt. And I think that everyone in the league those are 7 and 8. And I think it's a different order depending on what team you talk to, because I talked to a bunch of guys at Tulane the other day about those two guys. I think to start this process, Spencer I think both these guys were like fringe top 100, late 3, early 4. Can we get him on day 3? I think Spencer's done everything he can possibly do to go on day 2 at this point. And again, similar to Penix's injury stuff, everyone knows about Spencer Rattler and the show coming out of high school on Netflix, and he's gotten beaten up about it. And the transfer from Oklahoma, like there's enough consumable stuff out there that I feel like the average fan in the media feel like they know Spencer Rattler better than maybe they know the way some of these other guys' backgrounds and character stuff is. And people have kind of jumped to conclusions. I know where the league is at with Spencer. They see a guy that's been through a lot of crap and came out the other side of it. And going back to when Pete Carroll was in Seattle when I was there, that was the very first question that Pete asked every single guy in the combine interview was, tell me something you've been through in your life and how you overcame it and how you got through it. So Spencer's been through a lot. He's overcome it. Similar to Penix with the injuries. These guys have been through mentally taxing things in their life, and they've gotten through it. So Spencer's a beautiful thrower of the football. You brought up the supporting cast. I actually think it worked in his favor in terms of the evaluation. I think we saw a guy that has more mobility than a lot of people gave him credit for, including myself, coming into the year. I thought he was just kind of a statue pocket guy. He showed this year he can get out of harm's way and move around and make some throws. So I think it's going to help him. So long-windedly, Rob, I think that he and Pratt both go somewhere on day 2. For them, hopefully second round, but talking to both their agents at that, at any point in the draft for these quarterbacks, like, man, don't be worried about where you go, or like when you go, it's where you go. I'm a supporter of all our guys. I want them to all end up in situations where they can flourish. I mean, looking back, we had Mac Jones in the game 4 years ago, and it looked like Mac, goes to the Pro Bowl year one, and then that thing fell apart. And again, I don't think that's Mac's fault. So I just hope all these guys go to good situations. But I do think Spencer is going to go somewhere on day 2, hopefully the second round.
Well, Jim, it's been a pleasure having you on and being able to talk these players with you again. And I know everybody really loves to hear your opinions on this. The journalist in me is going to finish with one question, and feel free to say no comment on this. And
Okay.
I'll understand if you do. I noticed that you did say to Mina Kimes on Twitter the other day that you did in your opinion, your hunch was that the Seahawks wouldn't go O-line first. Do you have any hunch on what they might, on what might be a plan for them this year?
I'll say this. I leave those guys, like, I talk to those guys a lot, but when it comes to this time of year, I stay in my lane, man. Like, I really do. Like, I don't try to pry, because I have to do stuff like this, right? So I don't want to get in a situation where I would ever betray their trust. Again, just knowing their football team and knowing where the new head coach is coming from and what they've lost. They're going to need linebackers. You lost linebackers. That's a clear need. I think a big defensive tackle is a need. The 2 offensive tackles are, when they're healthy, they're good players. But I think that there's need inside. We'll see where that goes. I think Oluwatimi is a guy that the team, would like to see in there, whether that's guard, whether that's center. I think he gives them some flexibility on draft day on what to take. I don't think they have to lock themselves into a center. I don't think they have to lock themselves into a guard. I think if they go O-line, they can just take the best one, because I think Olu could play either spot. I think there was some feeling last year that they wish they would have played him more. So, but no, man, again, I'm just off the top of my head right now, trying to think of depth chart right now, but I don't have any inside intel. If I did, I probably wouldn't tell you, but I do. And this goes with all teams. I'm talking to guys all the time. I don't like prying into their business this time of year. It's just not, I don't feel right about it.
Totally understood, Jim, and worth a try, but understand absolutely your position. Look, Jim, really appreciate your time. Congratulations again on a fantastic Senior Bowl, and already looking forward to next year's event.
Oh, thanks, Rob. Yeah, no, let's stop there. We need to keep recharging the batteries a little bit before next year. But no, thanks for having me on. Maybe when after Seattle has their draft, I'd love to jump back on and talk about those guys with you.